service. So our focus this month is on our summer reading list. And as I said last Sunday, we all have, I know because I checked with you, we all have either a stack of books by our bed that we are going to read, or we have that reading list, or we have the books queued up on our Kindle that we're, wanting to read. And summertime is a great time to pull one of those books and actually read it. And that's what I like to do. And then I like to use this a month in the summer, being August, to look at a book or two or three or four. Last summer I did 4 that I had been on my reading list but hadn't quite made it to the top. I decided it would force me to read the books if I was going to talk about them. So I let 2 books bubble to the top this month, and one of them is Pam Grout, who is the author of E Squared and E Cubed. You might remember that. We explored both of those books in the past. But her newest book is called Living Big. And I've had this book for a long time because it's a couple years old. It's not new, but it's a few years old. I've had it for a long time, and I just hadn't gotten to it yet. So I got to it finally, and it's a great book about how to live more fully in the divine, more fully in the expression of God that you came here to be. As Ernest Holmes said, I quoted it last Sunday, the person who more fully expresses God is the one who lives largely than the one who lives meagerly. And so this is about living large, living big, and concepts, ideas that help us live in that way. And so last Sunday we looked at this book. This Sunday we will look at it again, and the next week we'll go off to a second book. So as we live big, we live God. So just think about that. As we live big, we live God. So what if we said, as I live big, oh, thank you. Thank you. I love that. I live God. So let's say it together. As I live big, I live God. Do that again. As I live big, I live God. That's the truth. That's the spiritual truth. So what does it mean to live big? According to Pam Grout, there are a number of different things that she talks about that constitutes living big. We looked at 3 last week. If you want to know what they are, go back and listen to the recording of last week. Today we're going to look at 3 more. But before we look at the 3 more, I want to just remind you of something, because what we've said this month, talking about living big, is we're having some new thoughts about how to live. And remember last week I said science has said we have approximately how many thoughts a day going through our head? 60,000, yes. So we've all heard that statistic probably. But what we haven't heard is the statistic that I gave you last week, which is of those 60,000, what percentage, do you remember of them, oh look at that, are simply recycled thoughts from yesterday and the day before and the day before. They're not unique thoughts. What's the percentage? For the average person, it's 98%, which is 58,800 if you want to do the math. Now, what I said last Sunday is that now because we're in New Thought, a system called New Thought, maybe we don't quite hit that 98%, but that it's more like perhaps 95. That's just a guess. I don't know. But if it's even 95, that's still 57,000 thoughts a day that are simply thoughts that we had yesterday or the day before that. Or the day before that. What if we really had some new thoughts about things? And that's what we're doing this month, is having some new thoughts about what does it mean to live big. So our 3 new thoughts we want to have today are around the ideas of blessing big, which is about having the attitude of kindness, giving big, which is the attitude of service, and loving big, which is the attitude of living from a spiritually grounded perspective. So what I want to do is talk relatively briefly about each of those, because you can figure out what that means to bless big, to be kind, to give big, to serve, to love big, to live from a spiritual perspective. You've got that. I want to say a few things about it. But I want us to more have an experience of it. So I'm going to share a little bit about each of those. And I want to just give you a story that for me just kind of brings it all, encapsulates it all together. And then we're going to get a chance to practice something, or at least I'm going to give you an opportunity to actually go out and live it. And then in here, we will ask ourselves to have some new thoughts. So that's the lay of the land. Does that sound like a plan? Are you ready for that plan? Sure, yes. Come on, how about a hallelujah, sister? That's... Thank you. That's what I need that. I just need that encouragement. So blessing big, giving big, loving big. Now, really, they are, if you ask me, and as I was reading her book and thinking about these topics, those three things are really entwined. Because isn't, blessing big, which is living in kindness, isn't that really service and love in action? And service, isn't that based on love and kindness? And what is love if it isn't kindness and service? So they really all kind of interrelate to each other. I'll talk about them briefly separately, and then we'll put them all together. So blessing big, having the attitude of kindness. This is what Pam Grout writes at page 71 of her book. She says, there are some who might argue that in our world of global pollution, racial cleansing, and famine, kindness is a soft issue, a luxury we can afford to discuss after the big problems have been addressed. But until we practice kindness, all our grand schemes and political posturing will be in vain. By practicing kindness, by sticking out a hand, or by offering a thumbs up to our brothers and sisters, we can alter the world. By smiling at strangers, by going out of our way to applaud each other, we can bind the world back together. I love that last line. By going out of our way to applaud each other, we can, by smiling at strangers, we can bind the world back together. So who remembers the book, and then it became a movie in 2000, Pay It Forward? Of course, Kathy and Michael do, but that's a whole other story. But that's a private thing, right? But anyway, they fell in love in that movie. And I was there to witness it. It was kind of fun. All right, anyway, 2000. So it was 2000 that happened. This movie came out in 2000, and just as if you don't remember it or didn't read the book, didn't see the movie, just very basically, there's a little boy in 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade maybe, who has an assignment by his teacher. Everyone has the assignment, which is to come up with an idea that will change the world. And his simple little idea was to do 3 kindnesses for 3 different people, and then ask them to pass a kindness on to 3 more people, who then pass a kindness on to 3 more people, and on and on. I was so enthralled with the concept in the book and the movie that when it came out 6 months later on video, I was excited to show it at CLF. Now, I was a pretty new minister, like 3 years into ministry when this movie came out, and so a little bit green. As I thought I knew it all, but I didn't know anything. And 6 months had passed since I'd read the book and seen the movie, so I forgot 2 critical details about this movie. But I was so excited to show it. We invited everybody. We sent flyers around. There was a whole bunch of people, invited kids of all ages. And so we had kids there and adults there. It was great. And then the movie starts. And then I remember at least one of the 2 things that I had forgotten. And if you remember the movie, Helen Hunt plays the mother. She has the foulest mouth of anyone, and every other word out of her mouth is a foul word. And every time there's kids here, and I'm just shrinking. I am shrinking. Oh, I totally forgot about this part. And then the other part of the movie I forgot about was that it is just gut-wrenchingly sad at the end. It just rips your heart out oh my gosh, it's so sad. You just bawl your eyes out. So I'm wanting to show this movie to uplift and to motivate and inspire, and it's over. And first of all, the parents are just shell-shocked because their children have heard the F word about 100 times. And then we're all just bawling our eyes out, and I'm like, okay, let's go out and pay it forward. Not one of my finest hours as a minister. I hope those parents have by now forgiven me. The point is, it's still a great idea. It's an amazing idea to offer kindnesses to people and to invite them to pay it. They don't have to pay you back, but to pay it forward. I love the words of the Dalai Lama. He said, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." Through kindness, we live big. Through kindness, we give big and we bless big. So those are the things I want to say about blessing big or living in kindness. The next idea is giving big, which is having an attitude of service. And I want to begin this one with a quote from the Dalai Lama, again, who said, "We are all visitors on this planet. During this period, we must try to do something good, something useful with our lives." In the Bhagavad Gita, which is the sacred text, one of the sacred texts of the Hindu tradition, it talks about 3 ways to live our lives. The first way we could live our lives is a life of inertia and dullness with no goals and no achievements. That doesn't sound like living very big, now does it? The second way we can live our lives, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is full of action, busyness, and desire. Well, that might be a little more alive than the first one, but if we only live our life through busyness, action, and desire, it's going to fall pretty flat. It's not going to be a life that's fulfilled. The third way the Bhagavad Gita suggests is the way to live our life, and it is the life that is based on goodness, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. And it says this, loosely translated, "Through selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find the fulfillment of your desires. This is the promise of the Creator." So regarding giving big, regarding living a life of service and having an attitude of service, here's a great question that you can ask. Because you may be like, well, I don't know how to serve. I'm not sure what I should be doing. Oh, yeah, I could volunteer at church. Well, I don't necessarily mean that. Sure, that's great, but it's not really what you do as much as it is how you do it, the attitude that you have for it. So what you do is a result of the attitude that I'm living big because I'm giving big through service. But if you're not sure, I don't know what to do, ask yourself this question. And in a few minutes, you're going to get to have a new thought about this question. The question is this: how may I serve others so that they get what I desire? How may I serve others so they can get what I desire? I really think, as I am just thinking about that question right now, that's why I do what I do. I just realized that. Because who knew? Right, how do you like that? Because this doing what I do gives me a chance to deepen spiritually, to study, to grow, and I get to do that by supporting you in doing that. So that's a great question to ask at all different levels of our lives. How may I serve others so that they may have what I desire? And of course, the irony is that if we just go out to get what we desire, we may get it on the surface, but we won't be happy. But when we help others get it, we get it too and have the happiness as well. I love this quote from Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics. That's a textbook of one of the classes that's coming up this fall. Spiritual Economics is going to be a great class by Reverend Sally. And in the book, Eric Butterworth says, "Life's inmost secret is the divine pattern in you, which you can only really know when you are giving yourself in service." So, service, another dimension of living big. Third dimension of living big that we're talking about today, we'll pull them all together in a moment, is living big, or having an attitude of spirituality or an attitude of connectedness to all things, knowing that love is the thread that connects all things. And I love this quote from Pam Grout at page 161 of her book, which, by the way, we have the book now in the bookstore. We didn't have it last week, but we have a couple of copies. So if you want to take this book home and add it to your stack, put it up high, because it's a great book with lots of good examples and stories and practices that we haven't gone into here in Sunday morning of how to live from these ideas. So go get the book in the Wisdom Center. But she writes, excavating our dark. She's talking about being in therapy. How many? Oh, yeah, come on, let's fess up. How many of us have been in therapy? Yeah, right, me too. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, me too. Years and years. And it was great. It's good. It's a good thing to do. But she writes, suggesting about sometimes our years we spend in therapy. She says, we spend years in therapy excavating our darkness when right under the next rock is the world of wonder and brilliance. Yes, I'm talking about our spiritual side, that transcendent force at the center of our very being, which is love. This love that is under the next rock is the most potent force in the universe. It's Spider-Man, Superman, and Jesse Ventura all rolled into one. I would add today Wonder Woman in that, but that would just be me. Yeah, right on. Love is the cosmic electricity, the condition that allows us to dream of bigger playing fields. The voice that constantly whispers, you could do more. You could be more. Most of us have a tendency to ignore that voice when we listen instead to the voice that says, this is all there is, this is all you can be. We get so preoccupied with things that don't matter that we lose sight of the things that do. There was a study done years ago, a U.S. psychologist did this. He studied 2 groups of orphans, each 12 orphans who lived in very different places. And in one group, these 12 babies were given very little love. Their basic needs were met, but that was pretty much it. Their basic needs were met. The other group, their basic needs were met, but they were also given a lot of love, including they were taken almost every day to another institution where there was a young woman who was mentally challenged but had the biggest heart, and she loved to love on little ones, and so she would just love up on these 12 little ones. Almost every day these babies got love from this young woman. And the study tracked these people for 20 years to see what happened in their lives. And at the 20-year mark, the statistics were this. Of the group that didn't get love, that got their basic needs met, absolutely their physical needs were met, but that they didn't get the love, the majority of them had passed away. And the rest of the ones who were still alive, every one of them was in an institution. Every one of them. Of the 12 that got love, they were all alive, graduated from high school, happy, productive, many of them happily married. Love was the key ingredients there that they got. Pam Grout writes, love, folks, is the big cheese. It is who we are. It is why we're here. Or as Ernest tells us in The Science of Mind at 298, love is the very reason for our being. The life that has not loved has not lived. Love is the sole impulse of creation. No one can swing out into the universal without love, for the whole universe is based on it. Kindness, service, love as a spiritual connection. So I want to tell you a story that is about all of those things, all rolled into one, and the impact that it has. It's not a true story. It's a little book, actually. Pam Grout talks about it in her book. She said it's one of her daughter's favorite books. And it's called Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. And the story goes like this. There was a lonely little man by the name of Mr. Hatch. He got up at 6:30 every morning to walk to work to the shoelace factory where he did his job. And at lunch, he would go to the cafeteria and sit in a corner by himself and eat his cheese and mustard sandwich all alone. When work was done, he would walk to the newspaper stand and pick up a newspaper. He would walk to the butcher and get something for dinner. He would take it home. He would eat his dinner. He would read his newspaper. He would go to bed early to get up the next morning at 6:30 to walk to the shoelace factory to do exactly the same thing again. And that is what he did day and day and day and day. And he was very lonely. One Saturday, there was a knock on his door, and it was the postman, and he had a package. He delivered the package. Mr. Hatch was very surprised to get this package, and it had no return address. He opened it up, and in there was a box of chocolates and a little card, a little white card that simply said 3 words, "Somebody loves you." He thought, who could that be? Nobody loves me. Who loves me? He put it aside. He went about his day dusting his house as he always did on every Saturday, but he kept thinking about, is that real? Did that really come? And so he would go back to the table and he would look, and sure enough, the box of chocolates and the little card that said "Somebody loves you" was there. Were there. He kept thinking, who loves somebody? Somebody loves me? He decided he had an old tie he hadn't worn in a long time. It was yellow with blue polka dots. He decided to put on that tie. He decided to feel better about himself. So he put on that polka dotted tie. Made him feel good. He decided to go take a walk. And so he took a walk. And outside he waved and smiled and said hello to all of his neighbors. which caused them to fall off ladders and trip over their dogs because he'd never, ever done anything like that before. He ignored them. The next Monday when he went to work, he took the box of chocolates into the cafeteria and he shared them with all his coworkers, and they laughed and they were happy. And after work, he went to get his regular newspaper and found out that the newspaper stand man needed to go do something. And so Mr. Hatch said, "I'll watch the newsstand while you go take care of that." And so he did. And then he went to the butcher to get us something for dinner, and he smiled and he talked to the butcher. Life was different. Life was happy because somebody loved him. This went on for weeks. And then one day, knock on the door. It was the postman who said, "Mr. Hatch, remember a couple of weeks ago I delivered a package to you?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I am so sorry. You might not know this, but that was Valentine's Day, and I delivered it to the wrong place. And if I don't get it back and deliver it to the right place, my boss is going to have my job." So Mr. Hatch said, "Well, I'll give you back the card and the empty box of chocolates, but because they're gone." But he gave it back. And he sat there and he thought, "Oh, nobody loves me after all." So he put his old clothes back on. He started walking to work the same way he did before. He ate his cheese and mustard sandwich by himself in the corner alone. And after a few days, his coworkers and his neighbors started talking amongst themselves. "What happened to Mr. Hatch? We liked that new Mr. Hatch. Where did he go? What happened?" And they happened to talk to the postman who told the story. And the neighbors and the friends from work decided one day to show up at his door, knock, 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 another knock on his door. And when he answered it, there was a big sign that says, "We all love you, Mr. Hatch." And with that, he cried tears of joy, walked down, and joined his friends. Somebody loves you, Mr. Hatch. There are a lot of Mr. Hatches out there. People who need love. A kind word. A touch. An act of service. A smile. There are a lot of Mr. Hatches out there. So everybody take a breath. I know that was a really sweet, touching story. And I'm out of tissue up here, so I can't even cry. Dang, you guys took all my tissue. Oh, actually, there is one. There was one that came out. Here it is. Good, I got it. Thank you, but yeah, new box. Good, that's good. You have, in the pew pocket in front of you or sitting on the pew, one of our beautiful What Would You Love cards. They're in the pockets, and there's envelopes. This is not an in-service assignment. This is a post-service assignment. But here is your assignment. I want you to write someone a "somebody loves you" note. Now, it can be someone you know and you just want to send them some extra love and you want to sign your name. If you don't have one or can't find it in the pew, Rick is right here to hand them out. Anybody need one? I think we've all, back there, right back there, right there. Fantastic, he needs one, good. So it can be somebody that you know and you sign your name. That's okay, you can sign your name if you want. Or you can do it anonymously. And you can mail it to the neighbor who lives 3 doors down who lives alone. You can do it anonymously and put it in the windshield of somebody at the mall. Whatever, but your assignment, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is this week. Let somebody know that they are loved. Are you up for that? Yes. Good. So to bring our time to a close, so take those with you and do that this week. Report back. We'll have a little reporting time next Sunday to know how that felt. Because you're living big when you do that. But I want us to have a new thought this morning about our 3 ideas. So right now, if you'd like, close your eyes. And take a deep breath. Settle in. So we've said that living big means blessing big through kindness. It means giving big through service. And it means loving big by connecting with that innate spiritual quality in yourself and each other. Let's take each of those and simply in the quietness of our own hearts, contemplate a new thought, a new idea, an expanded concept around each of those. The first one being blessing big through kindness. And my question that I'm going to pose, and then just give you a few moments of silence to come to your own new idea, new thought about this. But if you have something to write that new thought down, I encourage you to do that so that you don't let it go. So the first question is, of our three, is, how do I make kindness more fully my religion? How do I make kindness my religion that I live from all the time? What is a new thought about that? How do I make kindness my religion? The next idea is giving big through service. How may I serve others so that they may have what I desire? What is a new thought about that? How may I serve others so that they may have what I desire? What is a new thought about that? And finally, our final question through which we invite a new thought is, how may I regain or reinfuse my sense of the sacred through love? How may I regain or reinfuse my sense of the sacred through love? What's a new thought about that? And so I know and affirm and accept that these new thoughts we have had here this morning about blessing, about giving, about loving big, they move out into action in our world to no longer just be thoughts we have, but be ways we are and activities that we do. And as we do that, we truly are a blessing to this world. We are a healing agent to this world. We bring the light and love of God to this world by living big in these ways. And so I'm so very grateful for this. I see the light of love and the light of God expanding because of this experience we've had here today. And my heart is filled with gratitude and thanksgiving that this is so. Knowing that as we have done this work, I have spoken this word, it is now done. Our job is to let it go and let it be and let it unfold in perfect divine right unfoldment and perfect timing. I release. I let go. I release and I know. I release and I trust. And so it is.